Hey everyone, this is Drake from Engaging Walk. Thank you guys so much for tuning in to our Monday episode. Today is the 18th of March, 2024. And today we're going to be talking about the sixth principle of Gottman's series, which is overcome gridlock. Of course, this is from the renowned book by John Gottman called The 7 Principles for Making Marriage Work. And if this is your first time tuning into Engaging Walk, thank you guys so much for tuning in. Here at Engaging Walk, we talk about all things love, marriage, relationships, and being successful in life through love and having connections with your loved one. So without further ado, we're going to be getting into today's content. If you haven't given us a like and a subscribe and a rating so far on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, that would really help us out with letting people know that you guys enjoy the content. We've seen that some people are really coming back, and that's really exciting for us. And we're excited to see the podcast grow in this knowledge and the success that comes with being so adept at understanding each other in love and through the connections that we have with our spouse. So without further ado, let's get into it. All right, so this is actually a really important concept, which is overcoming gridlock. So Gottman begins this chapter with acknowledging that there's a two-word phrase that pops up a lot in this series, in this chapter rather, which is irreconcilable differences. So what we're talking about what Gottman's talking about when he's discussing gridlock is this concept of irreconcilable differences. So this could be, just if you were here for last week's episode, we talked about, or rather it was Friday's episode last week, we talked about solvable and unsolvable problems. So this can range from a solvable to an unsolvable problem, depending on your couple's ability to deal with your problem, whether it be solvable or unsolvable. So in this case, it's primarily going to be focusing on the unsolvable, but he does talk about how solvable problems can come into this area of gridlock if we're not so adept at navigating how to work through the problems together as a couple, and respecting each other's points of view and what we want out of the relationship and what we want out of life. And that's essentially what this whole chapter is about. It's actually, I think, probably the most practical, in my opinion, out of all the previous principles, because, of course, the previous principles, as he talks about in this chapter, lead you up into a area in which you're going to have fewer and fewer gridlocks in your relationship. However, when you do come to a gridlock, this could be a matter of if, but for most people, it's going to be a matter of when. How do you encounter the gridlock? What do you do with it? And how you can reasonably and practically break through that gridlock is what he's talking about here. So for me, this is the most profound and the most practical information that he's given so far. A lot of it has been very practical, especially love maps. But this does sort of delve into that idea of love maps. But before we get into that, let's talk about what exactly Gottman is talking about when he's giving our definition of gridlock. So he says, according to Gottman, that you've had that you're in gridlock when one of four, or any one of these four, or some combination of them, are occurring in your relationship, where you've had the same argument again and again with no resolution. 2, neither of you can address the issue with humor, empathy, or affection. Again, that goes back to the unsolvable problems that he discussed in the previous chapter, where some couples that he did interviews with acknowledge those unsolvable problems with humor. Like, oh yeah, I spent too much money again last month on, name it. And so they have a sort of grace, they have a sort of acceptance of the flaws that come from the other partner. Of course, they're working on it, but these issues continuously pop up throughout the marriage. And although, in most instances, these situations are probably better in which they were in the beginning, they do pop up from occasion, and it's not an alarm bell. It's not a huge issue, although they're always, these couples are obviously working on it, but that's not saying that they don't have a grace, they don't have humor, and they don't have empathy and affection for each other, even in each other's mistakes and their character flaws. So item 3 was the issue is becoming increasingly polarizing as time goes on. And again, that just relates to item 2, which is not having that empathy or humor and affection for each other's flaws. So as time goes on, it becomes more and more polarizing. It becomes more and more of an issue. It causes more damage to the relationship. Item 4, compromise seems impossible because it would mean selling out, giving up something important and core to your beliefs, values, or sense of self. So again, as time goes on, the inability to reconcile those differences, that the argument pops up over and over and over again, we become more entrenched. We become more fixed in our positions in order to maintain our dignity, maintain our ego, maintain some sort of relevant relationship to our core beliefs and not towards each other. So I'm not going to read the whole thing, but there are some things that I'm going to talk about specifically and quote him because I think it's actually really, really great. But to summarize it, Gottman's talking about getting out of gridlock by recognizing the fact of why we get into gridlock and to begin with, which is for him, and I do agree to a certain extent or largely, that this could come from a position of not accepting, recognizing, or even understanding or respecting. Actually, he uses that word very deliberately, our partner's dreams. And how does this relate to engaging walk? What concepts do we talk about in engaging walk? We talk about the 2 cups in a bowl, right? So again, a lot of what we talk about here, what we have been discussing through Gottman, relates to our analogy of like 2 cups in a bowl. That, in other words, if my glass is full and I'm bringing my glass to the bowl of marriage, and my wife is doing the same, okay, well, everything's great. But what happens if my glass is full and I'm bringing it to the bowl and I never bother to look over at her glass to see how she's doing? Are her dreams being fulfilled? Are the things that she wants out of life coming to fruition? And that can lead to an exasperation of like what those small or even big problems are. So he gives some examples of not having children when the other spouse wants children. Those big issues, ideally, you want to, filter out when you're in the dating process. But when those, or if those big problems do arise, that there are irreconcilable differences, what sorts of dreams am I not allowing or not recognizing or not respecting from my partner? What sorts of dreams does she have that really speak to her and her life's goals? And am I assisting her and helping her develop in that way? And I think this is actually like one of the main reasons why we get married is I have goals and dreams in my life and I can't achieve them on my own. Same with my wife, right? She has goals and dreams that she wants to achieve and she can't achieve them on her own. Namely, the most obvious example would be children, right? Like, unless you're able to clone yourself, but who wants that? Who wants a clone of themselves? The whole idea is to have a family. So the family can't be achieved by oneself. You need another individual for that. And then through that bond that creates the family, more can be achieved in the family and individually than without, in my opinion. And that's probably the opinion of most people that get married, is they see something in their partner that not just that they love about that individual or that person, but the connection allows them and as an individual to achieve more, to reach for higher goals. You hear so much of so many people like, oh, I never really had, such lofty goals in life until my children came to the picture. Then I hit a different stride in order to achieve more because I wanted to set an example for them. You hear a lot of people talk about that. But also our spouse does that for us, and then we should also be achieving and aiming to do that with our spouse, if that makes sense. So he talks about here that, and I wanted to quote it because it's so well said. He said, "Why do some couples cope so gracefully with these sorts of issues, these dreams and being able to achieve them together? Why do some couples cope so gracefully with these sorts of issues while others get bogged down? The difference is that happy couples are aware of each other's dreams and consider helping each other realize them to be one of the goals of marriage." And I'll repeat that because it's worth repeating. The difference is that the happy couples are aware of each other's dreams and consider helping each other realize them to be one of the goals of marriage. And that's a selfless point of view from marriage. It's not all about like, what am I going to get out of it? And not also about what can I bring to the marriage, but also checking in on your partner's cup. Is my partner's cup filled? What can I do to help them fill their cup? What dreams am I not aware of? What dreams are they not achieving? And how can I help them? Or even just listening, being an ear that can just listen to them and hear what they want to achieve in life and being aware of those dreams. And he gives a lot of great examples of a list of common deep dreams expressed by the couples with whom he's worked. One was a sense of freedom, feeling at peace, exploring themselves, adventure, spiritual journey, justice, honor, consistency with past values, healing, having a sense of power, dealing with growing older, and then exploring a creative side of themselves, getting over past hurts, asking God for forgiveness, exploring an old part of themselves that they have lost, having a sense of order, being productive, having one's priorities in order, exploring the physical side of oneself, being able to compete and win, traveling, atoning, and ending a chapter of life, saying goodbye to something. Yeah, I think all these are really beautiful, and how we can help our spouse achieve their dreams is our dreams, because seeing our spouse successful in what they want to do with their life and achieving that together is such a great example for so many people, that, especially when you have children in the conversation with the family, that they have so many great examples to see from their mom and their father, that like, wow, mom and dad accomplished so much. Like mom helps dad with this, dad helps mom with that. And I can visualize what that teamwork looks like, and then how much they're able to accomplish together. And I know in our first year and a half or so of marriage, that it's such a joy to look back on the things that we accomplished together, and to look back and say like, what, it's not all about like productivity, but it is about what dreams each other that you have. And recognizing those dreams, being intimately aware of them, and constantly checking in, looking over at your partner's cup and saying, hey, look, maybe it's time for you to start that business that you always wanted to start. Or maybe it's time for you to go on that trip to Rome that you always wanted to go to. Or, hey, maybe it's time for you to like take a year off and work on that album that you always wanted to finish, whatever it is. And having that and having that sense of connection when you hear your spouse voice your dreams is very, very fulfilling. So I think we'll wrap it up with that. I think this will be one of our shorter podcasts, but if we reflect back on what Gottman's talking about here, that successful marriages are the ones that in which the both spouses are intimately aware with each other's goals and dreams and help each other realize them. And again, that is making that one of the core principles and foundations of the marriage. Sometimes that can elude us, and maybe when we first are in that dating phase and we're like really intimately aware of each other's dreams because we talk about them, that it doesn't mean that we can't and shouldn't check in periodically to make sure that our dreams are being fulfilled. And it's a beautiful and honorable thing to do in marriage, and it's a beautiful experience to be part of your loved one's dreams and to fulfill them together. So I know, Danny Silk has a great course. If anyone has ever heard of this or done it, if not, I highly recommend you check out on Keep Your Love On Academy or University, that he has a course called Dreaming with God, and within it he talks about how important it is to write down your 25 dreams, maybe even 100. They don't even have to be like lofty dreams like own a Fortune 500 company. That's a great dream, but that doesn't mean that we have small dreams that we'd like to have fulfilled, like running a 5K, running a marathon. That would actually be a big dream, but you understand the point that you can start off with your smaller dreams and recognize your smaller dreams and move your way up towards your big dreams, and just show your spouse and say, and then having that satisfaction of like, wow, I was able to accomplish my dreams, and my wife or my husband was there along for the process. And again, like just last night rather, we looked back at our dreams for 2023 and our goals, and it was so satisfying to see so many of them accomplished, and so much hope and so much hope, and looking forward to the ones that have yet to be accomplished but will be in the future. So with that, I'll leave you guys off with a happy Monday. Thank you guys so much for tuning in, and we'll have new episodes for you guys coming up. Hopefully we'll have one on Friday. It's going to be a crazy week for us here at Engaging Walk, but we will do our absolute best to make sure that we are getting content out and finishing up this Gottman series in a timely manner. So again, the goal is for Friday, but for those of you who've been tuning in, we've got big family movements coming up this week, so we're going to do our best. All right, well, thank you guys so much for tuning in. Give us a like, subscribe, comment. You can find us on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, and Spotify. And then a rating, of course, would go a long way to show other listeners or prospective listeners that this is a podcast worth listening to. All right, well, thank you. We're going to see you guys very, very soon. Goodbye.